Hello and welcome back to the PSA Q&A. This is part 2 where we answer questions from patients who suspect they may have or have recently been diagnosed with psoriatic arthritis in order to help you through this process. So the question for today is, how were you diagnosed? So this is something that comes up a lot from people who are trying to figure out what doctor to see and what their doctor will want to test for, what they will want to know. So I can only share my experience as a patient. Again, I'm not a doctor. But so when things started for me, I had swelling in my hands. I had fatigue that was keeping me from doing some of my everyday activities without being really exhausted. And then I had swelling and stiffness in my hands when I woke up in the morning for an hour or two. And after about 3 months, that was not going away on its own. So I finally reached out to my GP. My GP suggested that we do a trial of steroids, of Prednisone, oral, like just a small tapered dose pack of Prednisone to see if my body responded to that at all. And it did. And so it was his opinion that we needed to move to rheumatology then. When I got into the rheumatologist finally, which took about 3 months to get into, he wanted to run a whole bunch of tests. So he ran things like ESR and CRP to check for inflammation. He ran an ANA to see if we were dealing with specific diseases that cause antibodies. He ran RA factor to see if I have, that marker for rheumatoid arthritis. He ran tests for vitamin and iron deficiencies, thyroid, those kinds of things that can maybe point to fatigue, etc. And he also ran a uric acid test to check for gout because I have a family history of gout. Those all came back completely normal, with the exception of the ESR, which was very slightly raised. Sometimes you'll hear that referred to as sedimentation rate. That test will tell you if there's inflammation in the body. It's not specific to arthritis. It could be inflammation from lots of different reasons, but it was high, not super high, but high. So he also ordered ultrasounds of my hands. We did, especially the joints right here, because I was really swollen through there. But he looked at all of the joints in both of my hands. That came back as showing mild inflammation, except for a couple of my fingers on each hand, which showed moderate inflammation. So something was not normal there, but I was very lucky that there was no bone erosion at all. Something to be on the lookout for. Bone erosion is permanent. So I had some moderate inflammation and some mild inflammation. I was showing inflammation throughout my body and my blood work. And between that and the symptoms I was experiencing, that was enough for an inflammatory arthritis diagnosis. He couldn't give me a more specific diagnosis than that because there are people who have rheumatoid arthritis but don't test positive for RA factor. There were a couple of different other options as well, I think. But he didn't go into those in detail. He just said, for right now, we're going to say it's inflammatory arthritis. We're going to start treating you with some oral medications. We'll just see what happens. And that did help. Those, I started on, I think, hydroxychloroquine. So it helped some. My inflammation went down a lot in my hands. They went back to normal. They weren't hurting very much. Fatigue was still there. After about 6 months, I started developing enthesitis in my elbow. And we tried PT, thinking maybe it was just a normal tendinitis. And no, I definitely did not respond to PT. It actually got worse. And then I developed tendinitis in my ankle, in my Achilles. And that is kind of a trigger for psoriatic arthritis. It's really common. So my PA definitely thought we were looking at psoriatic arthritis. She asked me about psoriasis anywhere on my body. I pointed out to her that flakiness that was on my scalp that I thought maybe was psoriatic arthritis, that I thought was seborrheic dermatitis. That's what it had been diagnosed as previously. And she looked at it and was like, nope, that's psoriasis on your scalp. I'm pretty sure we're dealing with psoriatic arthritis. I was moving within the next few weeks. And so she had me take all that information to my next rheumatologist after we moved. And he looked at all of that and again confirmed, yes, he thought we were dealing with psoriatic arthritis. and got me started on a biologic immediately, as soon as my insurance company would approve it. Which is something we'll talk about in another video, insurance approval and all of that jazz. But so from initial diagnosis of inflammatory arthritis to diagnosis of psoriatic arthritis was a little over a year. I think it was like a year and 4 months. But I did start getting help right away as soon as I had the inflammatory arthritis diagnosis. So if you are given that kind of diagnosis, don't feel like you're being ignored or pushed aside. It's just a diagnosis that allows for a little bit of open-mindedness to what might be going on here and waiting for further symptoms to develop.